Be'ezat Hashem, we're going to actually finish up this last proof against Rav Chizda tonight. After that, we're going to get into a sugya of Rava, which we're going to see will challenge Rav Chizda. But here, the Gemara asks another question against the position of Rav Chizda. So just to remember where we're holding, we're at the bottom of the Gimel Amud Aleph, Tashma. It's the second wide line on the page, Tashma. You see it? Yeah. Doctor, you got it? Yeah. So we have this position of Rafram Bar Papa Amar Rav Chizda, that we said, if you're talking about an Avel, or a fast that is based on Avelut, which is because of Tisha B'Av, he's asur even to wash in cold water. If it's a fast Mishum Ta'anug, to refrain from pleasure, so then we said, he's only asur in hot water, but he's mutar to wash in cold water, right? So Tashma, the Gemara tells us as follows. Let's bring a proof against this psak of Rav Chizda. Ta'am Rabbi Abba Kohen Mishum Rabbi Yossi HaKohen. Rabbi Abba Kohen said in the name of Rabbi Yossi HaKohen, Maaseh, there was a story. Umetu banav shel Rabbi Yossi ben Rabbi Chanina. The sons, plural, of Rabbi Yossi ben Rabbi Chanina passed away. So two of his sons passed away, lo aleinu. Two of his sons passed away.
I didn't know it's two.
So I know because Rashi says, we didn't force him to speak it out. But it was at least two, because Banav is plural. So Banav is sons. At least two. His sons, Rabbi Yossi ben Rabbi Chanina Kohen, Rabbi Yossi ben Rabbi Chanina's sons passed away. So he was in Avel, he was in Shiva. Virachatz bitzonen kol Shiva. And he washed in cold water all 7 days. Huh? So this is a Meforisha question against Rav Chizda. Rav Chizda said, if it's Avelut or a fast because of Avelut, he's not allowed to even wash in cold water. So how could he wash in cold water?
So maybe Rachatz yadav panav v'raglav?
No, it says Rachatz means his entire body. That's what it meant. It would have said, yeah, panav yadav v'raglav. It doesn't say that. So this is a blatant question. So the Gemara answers with a very interesting chidush. The Gemara's answer is going to be like this. Really, it's asur to wash in cold water, like Rav Chizda said. This is a scenario where, lo aleinu, but this what happened to him was, one of his sons passed away, he kept the Shiva, and at the end of the Shiva, his second son passed away. Which means he had to go from Shiva into Shiva without a break. So in such a circumstance, the Chachamim were lenient, they were mekil to say, you could wash in cold water.
For the one time or for the next 7 days?
No, I think it means one, I don't know, meaning enough that he needed, whatever he needed to do. Meaning in general it would be asur. But since he had these subsequent avelut periods, one after the other, he needed to take a shower. It means shame on the guy. So shame, Nebuch. So Chazal said he could take a cold shower. That's the answer the Gemara is going to say. But in general, it would be asur. Let's read that.
So if it wouldn't, let's say it would have overlapped, not just...
I gave an example where it was one after the other. It's not clear from the Gemara if it was immediately after, it was within 1 day. But the point is, usually the 7-day period, you'd not be allowed to wash in cold water. But once it's extended because there's subsequent, even with a slight overlap perhaps, there is a leniency to wash in cold water. And as we're going to show actually, when you have these subsequent avelut periods, one after the other, there's other leniencies that they're afforded as well.
You know, you describe a situation, there was a guy here in this shul, that his father passed away, he didn't shave for 30 days, it was right before Erev Pesach.
Oh.
So then he had to keep Shmirat HaOmer.
Oh, wow.
And he didn't shave for 2 months.
Right.
So I don't know if you find leniency here.
It might be, I hear. It's good. That's a very
30
interesting
days.
case.
So the guy from zero had like a beer like this, like in his face, for 2 months.
That's a very interesting case.
And what did they do?
He didn't shave.
He didn't shave.
It was a veil.
He was a Nazir. So the Gemara says like this, Hatam, no, the answer is over there. In that case, Kishetachvuhu avelav. Shetachvuah means it was successive. Meaning he had successive mourning periods. What's successive? One after the other. His 2 sons passed away one after the other, and therefore there was a leniency, he's allowed to wash in cold water. That was where he had successive, he had one after the other mornings of Avelut periods. Titania, as the Braita explains, Tachvu Avelav, if there's successive mourning periods, Zachar, is that one after the other, So what are the leniencies? So first of all, an Avel is not allowed to cut his hair. But if he has successive Avelut periods, he can't cut his hair with scissors, as we'll see, because that's the normal way. But he would be allowed to be Mekil B'tar. What is Mekil B'tar? Mekil means to make lighter. Meaning is heavy hair. What's tar? Tar is a razor. He can lighten the load with a razor. Why is that? Because it's a shinui. You don't usually cut hair with a razor. You shave with a razor. You shave the back of your head with a razor. You don't shave a beard with a razor. So what the Gemara is going to say is that or hair. No, you're right. I meant his hair. So the point is, he was allowed to cut some off with a razor. The leniency is given because, again, he had successive mourning periods, but it was done with a shinoi. Let's read that inside. If his hair becomes too heavy, mekil b'ta'ar, he's allowed to lighten it with a razor. Take off some of it. Umechabes ksuto b'mayim, and he could wash his clothing with water. So the Braita says there's two leniencies in this Braita. One is if there's such a situation of subsequent avelut, one after the other, he can cut his hair with a razor, which is a shinoi, but he's allowed to do it at least so that he doesn't have such a heavy hair. And also, mechabes ksuto, he can wash his clothing with water, which also an avel is usually not allowed to do.
But that doesn't say anything different. I mean, the way you do your hair is different.
Right.
It doesn't say anything different about the way you
So excellent question. Amar Rav Chizda. On this, Rav Chizda commented. He said, first of all, with cutting, there's a shinoi. B'ta'ar avelo b'misparayim. He's allowed to cut it with a razor, but not cut his hair with scissors. Usually you take a haircut with scissors. And similarly, what's the difference? When was the last time you cut your hair with a razor? It's not normal.
But at the end of the day, if the hair is cut,
it's a shinoi.
But it's not Shabbat.
It's not an inyan of melacha like that. It's an inyan that an avel is not allowed to really cut his hair. So the Chachamim were lenient because takfu avela, but they wanted to say, do it in a bit of a different way. It takes off a little bit, it doesn't take off as much. B'mayim, and this is what Dr. Pomper just pointed out, it says you could wash his clothing with water. So the diuk is velo b'neter velo b'chol. These are cleaning agents. They used to use these things for cleaning clothing. Now today we use detergent. Back in the day, neter, I believe, brought down it's a type of dirt, and chol is a type of sand. They used to wash clothing with dirt and sand. It was types. I don't think this was like regular dirt that you dig out of the flower box. I think this was a type of cleaning agent they used to wash clothing with. But the point is, even though he's given the leniency to wash clothing, because again, takfu avela, do it with water. Throw it in the washing machine without the detergent.
You don't really clean it 100%.
Exactly, it's a cleaning.
Refresh your clothes.
Exactly, it's more of a refresher than a full cleaning. Again, it's a shinoi. Now, what we just finished off, we're concluding and saying, similarly, regarding taking a shower, Avel is usually not allowed to take a cold shower, but since this fellow had two sons who passed away one after the other, he also was given an allowance to take a cold shower. That's the point that we just brought out from this. So Rav Chizda's position is maintained. Rav Chizda holds that regularly an Avel or a fast because of Avelut cannot wash even in cold. This is a unique exception because takfu Avelav. Okay? Now, Rava, that we're about to quote, which we're not going to get to today, is going to argue on Rav Chizda and say that a mourner is allowed to take a cold shower altogether. But we're going to see.
Always.
But yeah. He can take a cold shower.
Also for the first week of the Shiva?
The Shiva, he can take a cold shower. That's what Rava is going to say. We're not going to get to that today. That's going to be the dissenting opinion, the arguing opinion. God willing, when we start the next sugya, we'll get into that, the next sugya. That'll be the next point, which will probably start on Thursday. And I guess we'll do it on Thursday. So I was just thinking now, for the few minutes that we have, maybe till we do Chazara, why don't we go over the 4 steps in this sugya, really, outside. Let's go through them. Yeah? Yeah? We really had 4, it was 2 proofs and 2 questions. That's really what it was.
We had the Taanit and Avelut.
So wait, first we had the halakha, but then we had two proofs and 2 questions. So let's go through it. First we have the position of Rav Bar Papa and Rav Chizda. So he says there's a difference between fast days of Avelut or an Avel and fast days of Ta'anug, that where it's Ta'anug, he could take a shower in cold. That's what he made this distinction. And Avelut, he's not even allowed to take a shower in cold. Now we had 2 proofs to try to support him. The first proof was from the Mishnah, right? Yeah, the Mishnah. First proof from Mishnah. The Mishnah told us The way the proof came, let's just skip to the maskana of the proof, is it says first he's not allowed to shower, and then it says they would lock up the bathhouses. So what was the proof? If it says he's not allowed to shower, that could be either hot or cold. But then it says afterwards, specifically merchatzaot, which are hot sources of water. So you see that when it's a fast day of Ta'anug, which is what the Mishnah is talking about, it's only hot water that's asur. That was the proof. And cold water is mutar. So this was a proof to Rav Chizda's position about fast of Ta'anug. Beautiful. What was the second proof that we brought? We said that this was the case of...
The first okay, we have Rav Papa says, when it comes to Avelos, everything is asur, cold or hot. Tanug, it's only cold that's permitted.
No.
The proof was...
From our Mishnah. Because our Mishnah says that, first it says you're not allowed to shower. But then it adds on, you lock up the bathhouses. And this is talking about ordinary fast days. So, not allowed to shower would mean both hot and cold. But bathhouses are usually hot water. So by double emphasis, it means to say, you're not allowed to wash in hot water, but you are allowed to wash in cold water. That was proof number one.
That's for regular, for Tanug.
Tanug, that was just the case of the Mishnah. Those are the fasts for rain. That's not Avilut. Proof number two. Beautiful. So what was the proof? We said in the Braita, we said the women that are mechuyav or zab, the people who need to go to the mikveh, they're mechuyav. Let's say yoledet. These cases where they're mechuyav to go to the mikveh, so we said on Tisha B'Av they're allowed to go, right? So we said that implies, hold on, that implies regular people are not allowed to go, right? So the Gemara says, well, what is this talking about?
But if nobody else, that's consistent with...
Well, we're talking about Avilut here. This is Tisha B'Av. So what was the proof? 1 second before that. So what was the proof? It can't be talking about hot because the Gemara assumed hot would be drawn water, and that's a problem of mikveh. So it must be we're talking about cold water, and you see regular people can't even go in cold water on Tisha B'Av. So we brought a question from the Seifa. Ultimately, we came out, it could be a proof. Right? The Gemara said in the end, is that it is possible for this to be a proof, but it refuted, it said perhaps it's talking about Chamei Tiveria, so this proof was unresolved proof, practically speaking. Then we had two final questions. The one we did today, the one we did yesterday. So what was the one we did yesterday? We said yesterday, a Braita that qualified the Isurim. We said, Isur Melacha is by day and not the night before. We said, shoes is Asur by ear, not Berderech. And then we said, Rechitza is Asur, Chol gufo, not panav yadav raglav. So we said, Dechen be'avel. So we compared regular fast days and Avilut. We said, well, what does it mean? So we said, it must be we're talking about cold water. Because if we were talking about hot water, Avel is not even allowed to put one finger into hot water.
If it's 100% comparison,
exactly.
Then you are forbidden.
So then it would show that Ta'anug type fasts are also asur in cold water. That was the question. So we answered.
Well, it said Tanug and Avelus are the same.
Exactly.
Which is a contradiction to Rav.
Well, that's not the way the Gemara brought the kasha, but that would be true too.
So that's a problem. What's the other thing?
Well, the main issue is that it highlights that Kol Gufo is asur, Panav Yadav Raglav is mutar. Now we know that an Avel is not even allowed to put his finger in hot water, so therefore it must be cold water. But then it would come out that cold water is asur for the fasts of Ta'anug. So the Gemara said it's not a kasha, because really the comparison is only in regards to the other two items of Neilata Sandal and Melacha, but not regarding washing. Regarding washing, there is in fact a difference. So that was the Pircha.
Because Avel, we know, can't put a finger in warm water, so therefore it must be that we're saying...
To make it a fair comparison, meaning that it's talking about Avel, has to be cold water, and then it would come out that Mishum Ta'anug is not even allowed to wash in cold water. That's a kasha. Here we answer. Fine. And the final proof today, which we brought today, which is the fourth proof, is that there's a story that this person's two sons passed away, Rabbi Yossi ben Rabbi Chanina, and he washed in cold water. He was washing in cold water. Kasha. So we said that's a special leniency given where he had subsequent avilut periods because two of his sons died one after the other. But in general, you're not even allowed to wash in cold water when it comes to avilut.
So in terms of supporting Rav from Bar Papa, the last one supports Rav from Bar Papa.
The last one is the last we just did.
The Kohen does. The Kohen case supports Rav from Bar Papa.
The fourth step we just did. Well, it doesn't necessarily support him. Meaning, we answered how it could support him. That since it was kishetachvu avelav, so he was mutar. You could also learn.
But why?
It's not a question. Let's say it like that. It's not a question.
Right. Well, it could be that because normally they can't, but because it was consecutive, they can.
Exactly.
That's consistent with Rav.
Exactly. That stays consistent. Exactly.
This is an exception.
But the point is, it's not a question. We answered that. That's not a question on Rav and Rav. Exactly.
Now the price of qualifying things.
This is stringency connected to it.
Is it against?
What?
What is all these stringencies of like no water, no bathing?
Yeah.
How are they connected to the Taanit?
Well, it connects to Taanit because the fasts of pleasure, the rain fasts were like that. Those were not fasts from mourning. The fast that we discussed, remember the second stage of fasts, those we're supposed to stay away from pleasure. So this is the distinction we're making ultimately. Rav from Bar Papa Amar Rav Chisda is coming out, and his position is upheld ultimately, which is we're saying that if it's a fast mishum ta'anug, like fasts for rain, etc., you're allowed to wash in cold water. But if it's because of mourning, like Tisha B'Av, or a regular mourner, someone passed away, you're not even allowed to wash in cold water. And that's the maskana that he comes out with. So next week, God willing, or Thursday, we'll start with Rava, who's going to argue.
Nothing to do with, like, for example, I wanna do a fast for myself with this stringency.
Oh, no, that's a different story. If you accept a fast with the chumrot of Taanit Sibur, you might accept these stringencies on yourself. But we already said usually Achid accepts Taanit Yachid, these stringencies don't exist. They don't exist. Unless you verbalize, I want to have the chumrot of a fast, like a public fast, that's a different story. Exactly. If you want to, you could. But usually we said if a person just accepts it, he means the lower level. There's not a issue of nilata sandal, of washing, of malacha, these things are not this.
None of these proofs were absolute. They all had some rebuttal.
Correct. The first one actually was a proof. Second one was back and forth, not clear.
The first one being required to make required to make the night and the Tisha B'Av.
That was the
Nobody
second.
else can go.
That was the second proof.
So the first one is
The Mishnah. Right, the Mishnah. The Mishnah was a good proof ultimately.
I have a question. When we said Ni'ilat
Yeah.
means to lock.
Lock. Yeah.
But when we said Ni'ilat sandal,
Ni'ilat sandal is you're wearing it.
So they're two different words.
It's two different meanings.
Yeah.
but it's
You can say
It is the same shorish.
yeah,
right?
but it's the same spelling, different meaning.
Na'alayim in Hebrew are shoes,
Right.
and lin'ol is talak. They're two different words. They probably come from the same
But you know what?
shorish.
It's the same idea. It's the same idea.
It's Ni'ilat sandalim.
Right.
It's a verb with the sandal, right?
You know what?
You're right.
Let me tell you something. In Hebrew, lin'ol na'alayim, lesandel, sandal, right? Lesandel.